order for you to get to that next level, you actually have to do less better and really trust somebody that can come in and essentially run your business with you, or in some cases, run your business for you. Because at that level, you've got complexity. You've got a pretty sizable team. You've got a lot of things going on in the day-to-day operations. You need a really systematic, process-driven way of how to do things. You need a team that feels aligned in their roles and responsibilities.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment and feel the beat within. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart and felt the beat within, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who are striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Before we dive into today's episode, I have a small request. Don't forget to put out that 5-star review and share this episode with anybody that you know that might be interested or might have any effect from the episode. And without further ado, let's skip into the episode. Welcome to the Everlasting Fulfillment Podcast, Derek.
Thank you, Nico. Great to be here. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You've got an amazing history. But I always kick off with one question. Have you ever heard of CEO disease or founder syndrome?
I have. And in some case, maybe have suffered it. So I've seen it, experienced, and I hope am living past it. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Yeah. Indeed. It's
Yeah.
a very harsh disease, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the experiences that you've had?
I mean, I think for me, working with entrepreneurs and founders and visionaries for the last 17 years, I've seen that, they have a big heart. They've got a big passion, a big mission. They want to make an impact through their business, which is empowering. And my role has always been to support them and to create the structure for them to be able to reach that growth and that scale. But I've also seen that before they get to that point where they're trying to do it all on their own, and kind of taking on all of the things that an entrepreneur feels like they have to take on when growing and scaling a business, they sometimes reach that, call it a breaking point, call it a glass ceiling, getting to a level where it's feeling hard. It's almost feeling like, is this even worth it, right? And in the beginning, they started their business, again, out of passion, out of a mission, and we had to do everything, right? We had to do the bookkeeping, we had to do the marketing, we had to do the sales, we had to figure out how to build our own website. And at a certain point, maybe they've realized that the best way to continue to grow is to hire, to bring in some team members and to help in different areas. And that's, really, really important. But in my experience, when you reach to that level of usually around, $500,000 or so, and you've done a really good job, in order for you to get to that next level, you actually have to do less better. And really trust somebody that can come in and essentially run your business with you, or in some cases, run your business for you. Because at that level, you've got complexity. You've got a pretty sizable team. You've got a lot of things going on in the day-to-day operations. You need a really, systematic, process-driven way of how to do things. You need a team that feels aligned in their, roles and responsibilities. And that's usually the kind of stuff that entrepreneurs, visionaries don't get excited about. They don't really get excited about building systems and processes and holding team members accountable. They want to focus on the vision. They want to focus on the bigger future. And so when they realize that perhaps to get out of their own way and escape that trap in some way and bring somebody in can help them get that business to the next level, not only do they feel confident because they've got somebody they can trust to essentially run the day-to-day, but they get more excited and kind of step back into that, purpose and mission and idea generation phase, which is why they got kind of started in the beginning. So it's been my experience, doing that with, with the clients that I've worked with. And, now as I'm kind of building my own business and kind of realizing myself that sometimes I'm in the same shoes, but, as they say, new level, new devil, and, onward and upward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a very recognizable story. I'm kind of in the same position right now where I realize that indeed, you come to a point where you're used to doing everything, especially, client wise, customer wise, you're focused on what you really want to do. And that's, bread and butter and what you really want. Then the whole shebang that's next to it, it's something that's like, really, do I need to do that? And I've come to a point to create my own team, and I've hired a lot of virtual assistants to do a lot of the stuff that I used to do. And
Mm.
it's always funny because, when they start working on your website in WordPress, they still give me access to my website. I'm like, shouldn't do that. No,
Yeah.
you should not do that because I'm gonna mess things up.
I'm going to go in there
You
and
know,
tinker
ads.
with it too much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want that button a little bit higher, stuff like that. And I've really learned to, step back and say, okay, you really want me to give me the access because you want to share and you don't want to lose anything, or I
Yeah.
want to be able to get onto it. And you never know what happens with a partnership, but I stay away from it. And still, it's still there, and it's the little micromanagement part of an entrepreneur. I think that I've always done it, so it should be done by me.
Exactly.
Um,
Uh,
that's really that's the real foundation of founder syndrome, very
there,
clearly.
there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's part of
No, no.
the entrepreneurial journey. But as we evolve and as we kind of look at the next level and see, what is it going to take to get to that next level? Whether you're just starting out and you want to get to, 10K a month, or you're, at 500K and you want to scale to seven figures. There's a lot of things. Here's the trap in some respect is the awareness, because without the awareness, we're going to keep going into it in the same way that we go into it, which is what got you here is what is not going to get you there. And so there's a lot that we could do, right? We could do the website. We could do the bookkeeping. We could do my customer service and manage my calendar. But the question we should be asking is, should you? And when we get clear that there's a difference between what you could do, because you could do everything, right? In the beginning, you did it. But at a certain point, it's actually being more discerning with what you could do versus what you should do. And often I'll do this with our clients and say, when we look at that, maybe should do, ask yourself a question. Is it nice, necessary, or neither? And what I mean by that, is it necessary? Like, is it going to be done? It has to get done. Only you can do it. It's going to move the bottom line. Great. But is it a nice to have? Like, you could do it, but you don't really have to do it. Maybe we could do that later. We've got bigger fish to fry. Let's just kind of punt that down the road. We can revisit it later. And then there's the stuff in the middle, which is the neither. It's not necessary, but it's also not nice to have. And then that's where we look at it and say, well, I could do it, but should I really be doing it? And maybe there's somebody on my team that I can delegate that to, or outsource that to, or create a process or a system so I'm not so heavily involved. Maybe I do the first 10%, the team or the system gets it to 90%, and then I just review it for the final 10%. So I'm not having to do all of the heavy lifting. I'm just doing the 20% on the front end and the back end, but then the team is doing everything else to kind of move that forward. So it's that awareness and being able to have that time as an entrepreneur to reflect and ask yourself that question, which can be very freeing, because once you get into that mode and you can continue, it's like a muscle, continue to build that, it's going to be more empowering and more kind of confidence building as you continue to grow and scale. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And one of the things that I've noticed, right, this podcast is a perfect example of an evolution of a business can go, at a very short term. I launched it by myself and, started looking for people. And then I found out there's tools out there that can help you. We met on Podmatch, and so
Sure.
we met there, and we just, you step one step after another, and then start doing everything yourself, scheduling and sending emails and, the meeting invite with a StreamYard link. Is all of that stuff
Yeah.
you do yourself, but actually you're full-time engaged in your project and you're doing that in the evening. And it's like, why am I still doing this in the evening? I got a perfectly amount of income and I'm still working in the evening. So that's
Yeah.
where I skipped over to one VA who I actually taught, because she wasn't used to working with all these tools. I actually taught her how to use them. And she's like, oh, this is a solution I can provide to other people. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. You teach people wonderful new things. And then she brought in a couple of things that, out of her perspective, she said, well, if I would be a guest, I would like this. And if I would be a guest, I would like that. And I'm like, wow, okay, you know what? Here you go.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah.
And then the second step was like, okay, the editing. I was still doing the editing myself. I was like, it's fun, you like this weekend twiddle and do stuff, and you spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
And then I, skipped that over to a VA as well. I said, make something out of it. And she's like, what do you want? I said, make it how you would love to hear this podcast. And she kind of, messed everything a little bit together. And at some point, you come to a position where I'm just doing the interviews. I love doing
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
having a conversation with you, going into the
yeah,
depth of this thing that I want to make people aware of what exists. And then it's after that, it's like, okay, I'll hear when it get launched.
yeah. It's the it's the ability to see like what your zone. We all have our zone of genius, right? And so
Yes.
I know. I mean, I've only spent a little bit of time with you. We connected before, and obviously we're chatting today. And I can sense that your zone of genius is things like connecting with people and developing relationships and kind of getting to understand, working with businesses, like maybe what the block is and how to uncover it and have to move past that. Others, their zone of genius is like executing a plan and video editing and bookkeeping and building out a website. And so when we all are aware of what's our zone of genius and be able to free ourselves up to spend more time in that zone of genius and create the support, whether it's the people or the process, so that I can stay more in my zone of genius. Usually the zone of genius is where you make the most money and make the
Yeah.
most impact, right? And so if you can find ways to get into that, the better. And I'll share one other thing based on what you're describing. I think it's great. People ask me all the time, "Yeah, how do I know who I should get help with? Is it a VA? Maybe it's
Yeah.
an OBM, like an online business manager, or a COO, like we do, a chief operating officer." I said the first thing is just understand that most entrepreneurs, a majority of what they do and how they do things, live up here. It's in their head. So part of it is just getting it out of your head. I don't care if it's getting out onto a Loom video or a notepad or an Asana task or an email or a Slack message, whatever. But first, we got to get it out. And then if you're looking to get support, start somewhere. And usually for most, if they're looking to grow in the beginning stages, to say, get a VA, right? A VA is going to be the person that's there that's just going to get it done. They're going to be that taskmaster, that implementer that can execute basic stuff, right? They're not going to be super strategic and be able to develop a 1 year, 7-figure plan, but they're going to be there to edit the video and schedule on StreamYard and get it posted on Spotify and everything else. And that's that first step, just to get some bandwidth back, get some time back. When you're getting momentum and you feel like you need another level of support and you need somebody that can really kind of project manage and get some plans executed, I always say then step into what I call an online business manager. And an online business manager is more strategic. They execute and implement, but they're more than just one task at a time. They're going to think ahead. They're going to be more proactive. And they usually focus on three things: marketing, operations, and project management. And so when you have that support mechanism in place, you feel like you've got really great growth and, again, more bandwidth and more time. When you're scaling and you're close to 7 figures or at 7 figures, what you need is a chief operating officer, because they are your partner. I often say they are your trusted second in command, the one that is your strategic thinker, the one that is going to think big with you and not just talk about ideas and then kind of leave the spaghetti on the wall. It's like, okay, great. Now I'm going to go make that happen. I'm going to go make that real. Here's the plan. I'm going to execute with the OBM and the team and hold everything accountable as that air traffic controller. So it's an evolution. But I always say, if you're just starting out or if you're looking to get some help and you don't know, get a VA, see where your time is being spent the most. If it's in marketing, get a marketing VA. If it's in customer service, get a customer service VA. They're all available. They're very affordable. And I'm sure, as you know, what you pay and what you get back in terms of time saved to then reinvest is 5, 10, 50x based on the output. So it's definitely a worthy investment. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I think talking about investment is it's really, the calculation on what a VA costs purely as a figure. For instance, if I, bill an hour for 120 euros and my VA is like 50 or 60 euros, this is like 60 euros. I'm still having
Exactly.
the income and it's a deductible cost. So it's like it's a system that works for itself that is implemented. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that I've noticed, for especially starting solopreneurs who look at the money specifically that they send out,
Yeah.
that it touches their cash flow. And it's so strange because if you got the entrepreneur mindset, that investing money brings you X amount more back, but you have to first, a lot of them have to experience that
Yeah.
investment that comes back at some point. Where, for instance, I started off with a VA to just look at all my invoicing. You know, I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm a chaotic person, really. Some people don't, but I love the fact that I'm chaotic because I am chaotic and I can bring structure in companies. I
Yeah.
cannot do that for myself. I'm just too busy with all the other stuff. I don't like doing it. So
Yeah.
I asked her, check my invoice. What's wrong? And she got herself paid back in, I think, 2 months.
Yeah.
So the amount of that time that I spent with customers instead of with my billing, yeah, it brought me a lot of joy on one
It's
side and a financial.
That's the thing.
It's
And oftentimes the financial ROI, we like that. It's tangible. It's real. I can see it. I paid, 5 hours a week at €50 an hour. So I'm paying €250 to get 5 hours back, which I can then implement and make, 10 times more. Right. So that's real. That's the tangible piece that motivates us to say to let's get another VA or let's hire an OBM or, take it to the next level. But also there's the energetic component because when we are freed up from not having to do that task, not only does it take our time, but it drains our energy because I'm like, oh, gosh, I mean, I'm asking because I'm just guessing that on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, if you have to spend the first 2 hours doing invoicing versus doing podcasting on an energy level scale of 1 to 10, where's your energy when you're doing invoicing versus where your
Yeah.
energy, right? And energy is everything because that's how you show up. It builds your confidence, it builds your motivation. And I loved what you shared about that um, kind of aspect of how, for entrepreneurs, like you said, chaotic. And I say oftentimes working with entrepreneurs, they're big thinkers, they're visionaries, they're big risk takers. And so that's amazing. We want them to be kind of looking at the bigger future, but also in some extent, uh, they're the kite that needs the string because without the string, the kite can just kind of float around and that's, up here, but we need that grounding element. And I can't take credit for this expression because I work with my wife and she's an entrepreneur as well. And we've been working together for 17 years. And what she would describe this is that we need structure for our nature. Our nature as entrepreneurs is that we like to start things, but not necessarily finish things. We've got lots of balls in the air and we need somebody to create that loving support mechanism and that container of accountability, not, get it done. It's got to be done by the deadline, but like, how can I help finish this for you? How can I help land the plane? What does it look like in a finished state? And how can I help make that happen for you? Getting that type of support is incredible. And I'll just echo the last thing I'll say, because you're saying the same things that I really appreciate um, around investment in team, whether it's a VA or a COO, it doesn't matter who it is. The biggest entrepreneurial mindset shift that most solopreneurs need to make in the beginning, because for those that are already at a certain level, they crossed this barrier of realizing that when you start to look at team as an investment and not an expense, everything changes. If you look at it as a cost to bring somebody on board versus the investment of what it's going to provide back to you monetarily, as well as energetically, everything changes. Because at that point, you're going to say like, I got to spend $50 an hour to get a VA that's going to free up my time 5 hours a week. Like, yeah. And that's a money-making game because the more that you can get that time back, the more that you can make. And that's how you scale. That's how you grow. So I love that you echo that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called ROI, but also FOI,
Yeah.
fun on investment.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
no, it's all about, the numbers. And that's something as well that comes down to entrepreneurship and everything that you do in business is know your numbers. But numbers is not only the financial part, it's also the energy part, like you mentioned. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that I've noticed in my contacts as well who feel isolated. So I'm jumping really into another subject here, but it's also related. Once you are entrepreneur, you're a solopreneur, and you engage somebody who is doing stuff for you, you got a little talk person again
Yeah.
to bounce off some ideas. They might not be completely into the ideas, but that's something as well that I've noticed in founder syndrome is that a lot of people, they tend to stay isolated in their little area because this is, somebody else might take away stuff and this and that.
Yeah.
So what's your experience in that, in seeing that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing it for, 17 years working with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey, right? And also in some respect, again, this is not my expression, but I love it because it really resonates with the fastest path to personal growth and development is entrepreneurship because it brings up
100.
all your SHIT, right? It brings up all your stuff, right? I can't charge this. Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to buy that? Who am I? All your beliefs, all your image, all your, self-talk is coming up left, right, and center in everything that you're doing. including maybe your friends and family. Who are you? Like, why are you out there? Why don't you just get a job? It's very risky and everything else because you're putting yourself out there in a very big way. And oftentimes in the very beginning, we're by ourselves. We're behind our computer, right? We're doing things in a passive way. We're doing things online. I mean, of course, we can still go to events and network and everything else. But I think if you look back the last couple of years with, COVID and everything else, people hunkered down even more. We had to. And now maybe things are shifting in some respect where we're kind of getting back to, people want to connect and kind of be in person and have that sort of, access, if you will. But when you have a team member, again, it can be a VA, it could be a full bred team. It's having that accountability and being able to have somebody that holds you accountable and having that person that you can lean on, somebody that you can, count on, somebody that you can give something to and say, can you help me do this for me? And usually if they're the right person in the right seat and I have the right skill set and responsibility, they'll kind of help and move that forward. But yeah, I mean, this is the rub. I'm glad that you asked that question because, we work virtually with all of our clients across the globe and we use a lot of tools. We use project management tools. We use Slack. We use obviously Zoom, Loom videos, etc. And we provide that because we can provide the service and do that asynchronously where we've got, I live in Paris, France. I have clients that live in California. That's a 9-hour difference. I can't be there in person. I can't be on Zoom with them at the same time all the time because, that's a 9-hour difference. So we can do a lot and move the needle and get traction and momentum, even though we're not, in person. But being able to have that kind of communication and that collaboration aspect, leveraging the tools that we've got available today, it's really empowering because you can get a lot of momentum and you can get a lot of results and you can still have a time for connection and collaboration and kind of, really seeing how we're doing. And I do this with my team all the time where, there are moments where we're working on what we need to be doing and we're, moving the needle forward with our clients. And then once a month, we just get together as a team virtually because my team is mostly based in the US. And we just connect like, how you doing? What's good? What's going on? How can I help? Just generally just kind of connecting in, not so much on the work that they're doing, but just how they're feeling about it. And that's just a value of mine to, to kind of bring that to the workplace. But yeah, when you're starting out, it can be lonely. So whether you're getting a team member or, having a coach or joining a mastermind or being a programmer, some sort of community aspect that can help you, raise your game is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest hurdles there is, the operational side of a business is it's pretty easy to talk about, and sometimes a little bit of the personal level with your team. And I also noticed in the past that at some point there is a sort of a wall that is created of things that you don't say to other people as an entrepreneur, like you mentioned, family, friends.
Mm,
I've learned very clearly. Let me be very clear on this: do not talk to your parents about your business, or do not talk about the details or anything, because it's not that they don't want to hear it. It's just they don't understand. They haven't, unless
yeah,
your parents have been entrepreneurs
of course.
and have also done all these steps. And and like you said, personal development. Wow, this is like high speed TGV.
Yeah, there you go.
Steamer.
Yeah.
Jump on trolleys, fly through the ocean and get an evolution of yourself really quickly. But what I've noticed is that sometimes entrepreneurs need one person that they can really confidence in. And I've also noticed that that's not usually the partner, the
Yeah.
person that they live with. A
Yeah.
lot of entrepreneurs find that their partner is somebody who's employed, comes home and says, my job is done and I'm gonna cook and I'm gonna enjoy the time with the kids and this
So
and that.
true.
Entrepreneurs do not do that. We
No.
cook, we enjoy our kids, but we do it at our own time.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I didn't start out in entrepreneurship. I started out in corporate. So I was that person that had that, kind of employee job and I would finish at the end of the day. And, my wife was, she's a business coach and she was growing her business at the time. And, we had small children and I would come home and I'm like, work is done. I don't want to talk about anybody's work, let alone yours. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I just closed a 5K client. Like, let's celebrate. I'm like, I don't want to, And so it's front and center, right? In that way. And especially because I saw that she was, living more of like her mission and what she was really passionate about. I didn't really have that. Not to say people can't get passionate and have a mission about their corporate, kind of employee mode. But then when I got into working together, I worked with my wife we still work together, but the last 15 years, I was the COO of her coaching business. We've scaled it for, 17 years and multiple seven figures. And, but I could see, through her and through those clients, especially with the partnership, oftentimes in our world, our clients are mostly women. And it was the husband that was, why do you have to invest in this coaching program? And why do you have to do this entrepreneur thing? Why can't you just go get a real job? And that can be really deflating, right? When you don't have that, loving support circle to kind of celebrate and say, I just closed a new client, or I just did this amazing launch, or I launched my book, or launched my podcast. You want somebody to be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congratulations, because that fuels your confidence to go do even more. So you got to find that somewhere. And if it's not at home, there's a way to incorporate that in some way with your partner, not make it feel like it's always in their face all the time. But there's always a way of, I remember I would say, she would ask me like, how was your day? And I would go kind of surface level, and I would ask her, how was your day? And she'd kind of go surface level. And then after a while, we realized, let's obviously share a bit more, because that's a value for us. But having somebody or some mechanism or a group to be able to have that around you is really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So, Derek, what's the message that you want to, put out there to the listeners?
I would say, if you're listening from our conversation today, and we touched on a lot of different things, that, I think this kind of idea of the entrepreneurial trap, or kind of the founder's, block, if you will. First of all, there's nothing wrong with feeling that. We've all gone through it. We've all been there in one way or another. And it's never, I have to say, it's not like utopia. It's not like you cross it and then you're never going to cross it again. There's new level, new devil. But if you're feeling like there's a bit of struggle in some respect in your business, and that's totally understandable, and it's totally real, everybody experiences it. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So there's going to be a point where it feels hard or challenging, or I'm a bit like pushing the boulder up the hill. Is there another way? And you want to kind of go into a more fluid, seamless direction. Get some support. There's nothing wrong in asking for help. And I think knowing that if you look at every successful entrepreneur, small business, as they've grown and scale, the one element that is always a common denominator is team. It's having somebody beyond the one person. You could do it all on your own, but it's going to feel like hard work and it's going to take more time. But I always say, if you want things to be done more efficiently, meaning more quickly and more effectively, which means at a higher result or a higher level, get some support, get somebody on your team, start with a VA, get an OBM. If you're at seven figures, get a COO, get somebody to do your social media, get somebody just to free up your time and get that ROI back, as you mentioned. But I think also that I love that FOI, the fun, what was it? Fun of investment, or you forget?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's both, and realizing that that's part of the secret to growing and scaling your business. It's a big component. I think that's a big takeaway for our listeners today.
It's a wonderful one. Yeah, absolutely. And Derek, you've talked about a little bit, touched a little bit on the name of your company and what you're doing, but how can people find you, and what are the things that, really are out there that you're different than all the others in your environment?
Sure. Yeah. So I own a company called the COO Solution, the COOsolution.com. We offer fractional COO, so Chief Operating Officer, call it a second in command, services for entrepreneurs that are looking to grow and scale. We also offer online business manager services and support. So if you're at that, low six figures and you need focus on marketing, operations, and project management, we offer that as well. But I would say what differentiates us in the marketplace, and just is from my experience, having done this for 17 years, and one of my personal values is, I do things based on trust. I do things when I work with a client, when we work with a client, with our team, our process and how we do things, it's all based on the value of trust, because that's always been a fundamental element of what I do, especially at this level. When you're working with a visionary and entrepreneur, they need somebody they can trust. That's why I often say you have a trusted second in command that is your boots on the ground, OBM, COO, making stuff happen, but it's based on the element of trust. So you can find out more at the COOsolution.com and see if it's something that might be interested. We have a quiz there that you can take to see if you're, maybe looking for a certain level of support, and just find out where you are and where you need to be. And yeah, happy to help.
Great. So I would say, listeners, check it out.
Thanks,
It
Nico.
sounds like a very good place to start when you're at a certain, like you said, glass ceiling
Yeah.
story to break through sometimes and get to that next level. So, Derek, thank you very much for your time. The sun is out, so
Yes.
let's enjoy it.
Yes.
We've had some gray areas. This is gray skies, not gray areas, but skies lately.
Enjoy the brightness while it lasts.
Absolutely. And thanks again for your time, Derek.
Thanks so much, Nico. Happy to be here.
And to the listeners, thanks again for following the podcast. And hey, don't forget, put that 5-star review out there and share this episode with somebody who might find this interesting. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.